Greetings, and it's time for Andy's Top 10. Now, top 10 what? That's always a problem to me when I do a top 10. They're my top 10, not yours. I guarantee you, as you go through this program, if you would even do something like this, you're going to have features that you really absolutely fall in love with and would be in your top 10 based on your workflow. Here's the spirit of what I'm doing here. My goal for this entire class and series is going from simple to complex, starting with simple shapes and making them more complex. So the spirit of these top 10 fall into the category of helping us go from simple to complex. And with that said, you guys ready? Let's go. Number 1. Let's begin with something that's totally brand new. Custom toolbars. You got a lot of stuff over here. You're not always using it. Why not have a toolbar that only has the tools you need for the job that you're doing at that moment? Go up to the word Window on the pull-down menu and go down to Tools and select Custom. Now, begin dragging over the tools that you need to get the job done, and then collapse this one and replace it with that one. We'll talk more about it later, but custom toolbars is my number 1. Number 2. Pathfinder options. I love these things. I've been using them for years and years and years. Talk about taking simple objects and making them into things that are more complex. This is exactly where you want to go. For example, come over here and select these two right here and just click one button in the Pathfinder panel and have a more complex, different type of shape. I can take all of these and click one button and make them into like a church key. Now we're going to get into more detail on Pathfinder options, but that's my number 2. Number 3 is called the Width tool. Now the Width tool will take things like a stroke. It's right up here. Kind of looks like a little flower, doesn't it? Select it, come down here, and just click and drag. And what you can do with this tool is take a stroke and turn it into a stroke with multiple widths. You can then convert that into an object and do anything you want with it. The Width tool, that's my number 3. Number 4, new features for our guides out of the rulers. Now we know how to use these things. Come over here, you drag one out. But you can now double click to actually instantly make guides, and if you come up to this corner point, I call that the Genesis point, you can actually drag down 2 guides at a time if you want to. And we'll get into more on those later. But new features, number 4, the ruler guides. Number 5, an oldie but a goldie, duplicate the last function. So if I come over here and I hold down the Alt, that's the Option key on a Mac, and make a copy of this one, say right about there, but I want some more, if I press Control D, that's Command D on a Mac, Control D in Windows, I can duplicate the last thing that I did. If I take this guy right here, let's do something a little bit different. If I come over here and pick up my Rotate tool, we'll get more into this later, and I come down to about here, and tell the computer I want a copy at 15 degrees, which is divisible into 360, and then do a Control or Command on a Mac D, I can make the beginnings of, I don't know, a flower. Duplicate last function is my number 5. Number 6, gradient mesh. Been there for a while? You can achieve things like this in a gradient mesh. You can do something simple. Here's the tool right over here. Say come to this object, click, go right about there, and start making something akin more to a ball with a surface 3-dimensional. So whether it's this or this, the Gradient Mesh tool is my number 6 because of its ability to create almost photorealistic images in Adobe Illustrator. Number 7, the brand new Touch Type tool. If I come over to my typing tool here and go all the way down to Touch Type tool, I can then select one letter and begin manipulating just that one letter. And the cool thing about this is it's still part of that text. And we will talk more about this later, but the brand new Touch Type tool is my number 7. Number 8 is the ever-popular Appearance Panel. The Appearance Panel is one of those things that even if I'm making new workspaces, I always find room to include it. It's right over here. Why do I like it? It gives you total control over whatever you're doing. For example, I've got a star. I've applied a 3D effect to the star. It's got a gradient. There are things I want to do to change it. Now, some of those things I can do over here, I know. But if I select it, everything about that particular object is being controlled by this one panel. Even the 3D extrude and bevel. You don't want it anymore? Turn it off or delete it. The Appearance Panel is one of those things you always want to have handy. That's my number 8. My number 9, Image Trace. Now, for you old-timers out there like myself, it used to be called Live Trace. It's Image Trace. You have a photograph, something like this. You want to convert it to vector so you can colorize it and work with it as a vector object. No problem. Click here, come up here and click Image Trace. Now come over here and say go down to 16 colors. Now we come over here, expand it out, and you have now a vector object with all the rights and privileges of vector work. We'll talk more about these later. Image Trace is my number 9. My number 10 is something called Live Paint, and it kind of goes with Live Trace, or what used to be called Live Trace. It's now Image Trace. Basically, I have a photograph here of a sketch. I click Image Trace up here to turn it into a vector. I expand it out. Now it's a vector. Again, we'll get into this later. Here's the Live Paint bucket. Now, if I select that and come over here, I can begin by clicking and then actually adding different colors to these areas. Just by clicking. We could spend a lot of time on this, but this is just kind of a demo. Live Paint allows you a much easier way to control the colors, strokes, and or fills within a Live Paint document. Well, there you go. Those are my top 10, not necessarily in any order, but just 10 features out of thousands in Adobe Illustrator that I think kind of represent the spirit of this program and its ability to take even simple objects and make them into things much more complicated.